My name is Daniel Washington, and I bring you greetings from the Central Region of NAM Incorporated. NAM, the National Association of Negro Musicians, was established in 1919, 101 years ago. We are extremely proud of our history. We are so proud that, in fact, the Central Region was where NAM began. The Chicago Music Association and the Detroit Musicians Association are branches number 1 and number 2. They were established in 1919, and the Det Club of Chicago was established in 1922. We are ever so proud of our history and what we have accomplished in the last 101 years. But as we look forward to the next century of NAM, we in the Central Region are retooling for our musical future. We are doing everything possible to make ourselves relevant and inclusive. Please enjoy the talent that you will hear as part of NAM Week from the Central Region. It is but the tip of the iceberg. Enjoy, and thank you very much.
This next selection, "'Tis Sunset in the Garden," is from the opera Troubled Island, composed by William Grant Still in 1938, with a libretto by Langston Hughes and Verna Arvey. The story takes place in 1791, after a revolution that has occurred on the island of Haiti. The character who sings this aria, Claire, she has been taken against her will to become the empress of the victor in the slave rebellion in Haiti. Claire is of mixed race, and Dessalines, who is the crowned victor and therefore proclaims himself as emperor, has not had any formal education. So he depends on his personal secretary, a gentleman by the name of Duval, who happens to be in love with Claire, and she is also in love with him. He is of mixed descent, and therefore he was afforded the opportunity to actually be educated, so he does read and write. And Dessalines, to his detriment, depends on Duval for many things because he cannot read or write. Needless to say, towards the end, you've got two men vying for the same woman's love who loves just the one. So there will be death, there will be bloodshed at the end. And I won't tell you who, but maybe you'll read up on the opera and see what's available on YouTube. I can tell you the South Opera Company on the south side of Chicago, they actually did this opera, I think it was about 3 years ago. So it is slowly, hopefully, getting the recognition that it deserves. But anyhow, "'Tis Sunset in the Garden." So this is Claire. She's in the palace and she is bemoaning her fate. She doesn't want to be there because, number one, she's not in love with Dessalines. She'd rather be with Duval. And so she's in this palace. She is bemoaning her fate. She is singing. She's lonely. She's missing her freedom. And in this aria, she is yearning to get back out there with the images that Langston Hughes uses in terms of nature. She wants to be free. She wants to be back out there. So this is "'Tis Sunset in the Garden."
Steals over the world. Today we hail two of Chicago's finest African-American pipe organists. Both now are taking their place in God's heavenly choir, singing and making joyous music in regal splendor. Back in the early 80s, I was privileged to formally meet Mr. Charles Kendrick at St. Mark's Methodist Church on St. Lawrence Avenue, and Mr. Joseph LaRue at the Metropolitan Community Church on Martin Luther King Drive. Both are historic churches on the greater south side of Chicago. They both served as my organ adjudicators or judges in the Chicago Music Association's local organ competition. I played with great trepidation, knowing that I would have to be evaluated by two of the most outstanding pipe organists in Chicago. Later, as I began to further develop my organ skills, I was privileged to learn and watch these two masters at their craft. I will always be grateful to these organ virtuosos who left a legacy of great sacred music of the church and great organ works by the masters here on the south side of Chicago and across the greater United States. I've asked my wife, Phyllis Griffin, to join me in the theme to the Enigma Variations. Then I will follow with an organ solo, Nimrod, also from the Enigma Variations, Opus 36, number 9.
Good morning, Mrs. Moore. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Cornelius. I'm very well, thank you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, today I have the great privilege of interviewing you for the Central Region of the National Association of Negro Musicians, or better known as NAM. And so I want to thank Daniel Washington for this opportunity. And I'm really excited to be here and hear about your connection and your involvement with NAM. So why don't we just jump right in? So how were you first introduced to NAM, or who first brought you to NAM?
Well, in 1951, during my senior year at Dillard University, um, I was selected to represent Bishop Music Club of New Orleans in the scholarship competition.
Okay, okay.
Um, So Orrin Southern III was executive secretary at that time, and he had been my teacher for my first 3 years in college. And Lillian Perry was the president of the Bishop Music Club. So between the two of them, I was selected to be the representative for the club, for the Bishop Music Club, and attended the convention
Mhm.
in 1951, which was held in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wonderful.
If my memory is correct, there were about 17 participants,
Okay.
and most of them were vocal and some were piano. The results of the competition was that I tied for second place
Congratulations.
that year. And my prize was $25.
Wow. Wow.
It's
Okay.
so funny. So I am so happy that students get thousands of dollars now when they compete, and everybody gets something. So whenever they rearrange the competitions from the region and so on, I
Mhm.
thought it was a great idea.
Okay. Well, that's a wonderful history. So, with that said, what would you say then? How has NAM influenced either your life or your teaching? Yeah, maybe we can talk about that a little bit. How do you think NAM has influenced that area?
Well, since that was 1951 that I was introduced to NAM, that was actually almost 70 years ago.
That is
So
amazing.
when I did use the $25 prize as part of my tuition when I enrolled in the American Conservatory of Music in Chicago
Okay.
to work on my graduate degrees. Um, and so I've been involved with NAM actually since that time.
Okay.
Either I was in the Debt Club or the Chicago Music Association Club, and or both during
Okay.
those times, and active and supportive during those times, except when my children were very small.
Sure. Sure. Well,
So I've always enjoyed supporting programs and being maybe on the committees to present programs and so on.
that's wonderful. Well, I will say just I'll add this as a very short statement. This is, of course, particularly of interest to me to be talking with you because you were my high school music teacher. So that's a wonderful thing, and have been supportive from that time all the way up until now. And so it's been wonderful to actually be also a member of the Chicago Music Association along with you, or at least certainly participating in the activities. And you have come to many of the performances that I've been blessed to do. And I think a lot of that began right there in high school. So thank you so much for that.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you. And I will say, so there's so many questions I'd love to ask you. Unfortunately, we only have a little bit of time, but, and you've already mentioned this a little bit, but how would you say, or what does NAM mean to you in the, I guess, the big picture? What does NAM mean to you, or what has NAM meant for you?
Well, in general, I've always enjoyed going to the conventions when I've attended, and I looked for new ideas that I could use in my teaching or whatever I was participating in musically. I enjoyed the camaraderie with being with musicians from all parts of the country and seeing new things being presented at the convention, and the outstanding artists that were presented during the convention. Actually, I could say that NAM was an integral part of my life.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I do want to thank you for this time that you've shared with us, albeit brief. And I'm sure that having your history, I mean, hearing about you beginning with NAM even way back, or with the New Orleans chapter and Be Sharp, and then your continued work here in Chicago area. This is wonderful. Now, I know we have to end shortly, but I do want to say a little birdie told me that you, in the competition that you sang with NAM, I heard, did I hear that you sang this wonderful aria that that is usually reserved for certainly very seasoned singers, and so clearly you were at that time as far as your technique. Did I hear that you sang Casta Diva?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
This is the aria my teacher in college selected for me to sing. And I did it with all the repeats.
Oh my goodness.
And on and on and on.
Okay.
That amuses me.
Yeah. Well, just a little Bellini for the people. That's wonderful. Well, again, thank you for this interview and for your time. It has been enlightening. And I look forward to having another interview or even more time. So thank you so much, and all the best. Be safe.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Cornelius.
My name is Willis Patterson, and I'm a retired professor of music at the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I came back to the University of Michigan, from which I had received 2 previous degrees, in 1968. And it was at that point that my sense of an appreciation for the need of the history of African Americans in music, and classical music, so to speak, became very apparent to me. I had been teaching for several years in 2 HBCUs. But I had not learned quite the level of appreciation that I felt I needed to have for that history of African Americans in music, but particularly in classical music. I found that need and the response to it to be very present in my association with NANM, the National Association of Negro Musicians, which began with my association with Brazil Denard, who was at that time very active with it and on the board of directors. He subsequently became past president of the organization, and recruited me to join the Detroit Musicians Association, which of course is the Michigan affiliate with NANM. I found attending the national conventions particularly very rewarding in terms of providing me with my lack of information about and my need for filling that lack of information about the role that African Americans have historically played in making American music the force that it now is. There are many specific individuals who I had only heard about, and many more whom I'd never heard about, who have been contributors to American music in the specific form that African American music takes. And I, through NAM, became acquainted personally with many of them, such as William Dawson, and Sylvia Lee, and her husband Everett Lee, and ever so many others whose names don't come immediately to my mind, but who were very significant contributors to the history of African American music. The organization has a need for the infusion of current artists who need almost as urgently as some of the youngsters need to have an input in their activities as performing and artists and teachers of the history of our musical contribution to the world. The fact of the matter is that most of our fine educators and performers of color have been trained in institutions like the University of Michigan and like Columbia, and like Eastman, and on and on. Most of those institutions do not have a curriculum that is enriched and enlivened by that information that we need to have as knowledgeable teachers and knowledgeable performers, so that the contribution to their performing skills needs to be more than the maintenance of the tradition of spirituals. But the information about the wonderful compositions that have been written by African American composers over the past 50 years and beyond. Adolphus Hailstork and so many others are major contributors to the stream of American music. During my years with NAM, I became a member of the board of directors after a period of service as a regular member of about 3 years. And I was on the board for about 8 years before I became its national president. Well, at first was national vice president, and then was elected to be president in 1990. And I served in that capacity until 1996. The most apparent thing that I thought was missing was a written history of the organization. And so I undertook to write a proposal to the National Endowment for the Arts and the Humanities to begin written and published history of the organization. And I recruited the wonderful historian who's since passed, Eileen Southern, and several others to comprise an effort at recapturing history, first by doing interviews with older members of NAM. And this proved to be a very wonderful resource and a wonderful experience for me. I engaged a number of graduate students at the University of Michigan in being research assistants, and many of whom have since become very important scholars in the area. I think of Guthrie Ramsey, and Kira Gaunt, and several others. So I undertook to do publications during my period of time in NAM of some of the compositions that I came in contact with through some of the composers who were members of NAM. Howard Swanson, William Dawson, and others, and this resulted in a couple of anthologies of African American art songs.
men veder mio bel amore.
Among the activities that I undertook with NAM was being chairman of the scholarship committee. I succeeded Geneva Southall, a wonderful scholar, whose connection with W.C. Handy is very vital. She is one of the daughters. She was one of the daughters of W.C. Handy, and her sister was a flautist, wonderful professional flautist, whose name doesn't come immediately to mind now, but she served as the chairperson of the National Endowment for the Arts in Music and Opera. She was succeeded by a former student of mine, Wayne Brown, who fulfilled that function for more than a decade. In any case, the scholarship committee has grown, the scholarship effort of NAM has grown impressively, not only over the years, not only in terms of its prizes, monetary prizes, the first winner of whom was Marian Anderson, but also in feats. Some of the scholarship winners have made wonderful professional performers. Joseph Joubert is a very active pianist and conductor in New York now, was not one of the first, but he was a scholarship winner of NAM and any number of others who have gone on to have very fine professional careers as performers and teachers.
storm. Hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and a sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. Walk on. Walk on with hope in your heart. And you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone.
Hello, my name is Daniel Washington. I am the director of the Collegiate Young Artist Division of NANM Incorporated. The Collegiate Division was established 26 years ago under the leadership of President U.Z. Brown, Jr. Laura English Robinson was the first director and directed the division for many years. The division was started so that college-age students would have a chance to perform for people who look like them. It was also a chance for collegiate students to mentor with musicians in the field. It was a chance for the collegiate students to develop a network amongst themselves. These students have the opportunity to perform in master classes, in concerts. It gives them a chance to see their talents grow. As we move forward into the next century of NANM, we hope that any collegiate student that you will consider coming to our next convention. Thank you.